we are live actually.
Oh wow, it's exciting! Exciting to be
Yeah.
here with the Sabbir.
So Mark, what's up? How's it
How are
going?
you, Sabbir? It's good to be on with you.
Yeah, and I believe we will have a couple of more podcasts like this, and
Absolutely,
we
if
are
it goes
going.
well. But if it goes really
Yeah,
badly, we'll just cancel this one and destroy the records.
absolutely. Yeah, I'll just I'll just delete everything in my Facebook.
Exactly.
Uh,
Every trace of yourself, even your address
yeah,
in the phone book.
yeah. So Mark, today's topic is should you join a startup in 2022? And as long as I know you, you worked in pretty much like all of them are startups, right? Uh,
Not all, but I worked for a few, um,
okay.
and so enough of a sample to kind of get an idea a little bit of the startup world.
So right now, like in this part of the world, like in Bangladesh and in India, this startup boom is happening. Like what we have seen in 2012, the startup boom in United States. But right now, in this part of the world, uh, this startup boom is happening, and at the same time, economic downturn is happening, and
Mm.
as a result, people are not quite getting the expected job they are basically looking for. So as a result, they are more focusing to join a startup to build a business together or something like that. So what do you think for a fresher? Is it the right thing to do? Is it the right thing to do to go for the startup at the very beginning of their career? Or
Yeah, so like the answer to that question is kind of on a case by case basis, right?
yeah,
It would be similar to, does it make sense to join um, any company during a recession? But there
yeah,
is a little bit more risk. So yeah, you have to take it case by case. So it's basically, when you're looking at it, the one issue sometimes people have with startups is they get caught up with the idea that, oh, it's a startup.
yeah,
It's gonna be the next Facebook. It's gonna be the next Amazon. I'm gonna join
yeah,
this, and then I'm gonna be, millionaire, billionaire, even from the stock options or through some other means.
yeah.
And that's usually not gonna happen. It may happen, but
Yeah, most of the time, like in most of the case, it never happens actually because
in most cases it never happens. It never happens 95% of the time, probably higher than that. Um,
so so why
but
people are so hyped up getting into startup, like, oh, I'm working in a startup, and like everyone has mobile apps as their startup platform,
yeah,
and people are going there but without knowing that whether that's a black hole or a
or a,
or a,
or a
or
supernova.
yeah, or a supernova. Yeah. So a weird analogy, but
Yeah, because supernovas lead to black holes anyway, so maybe both are bad ideas.
yeah, so true, so true. All right, so tell me, like, what's your perspective, like, and what's happening in Canada?
Sure.
Let me tell everyone that Mark is from Canada, and we know each other for last 10 years, probably.
10
Yeah,
years, and we communicate off and on, sometimes
yeah,
more off than on. But then
yeah, true.
we spoke again, I guess a few weeks ago, and
Yeah,
I think I made a comment on one of your LinkedIn podcasts.
yeah,
So, and
because
then we
and
connected.
it's yeah, it was in Bangla, and I don't know how you understand. Did you put the translation button on? So to
No,
or
no.
you just like yeah, it's okay. I just comment there.
I was just trying to give you some good viral opportunities, you know.
All right, okay. Yeah, Canadian audiences,
Canadian
Canadian
audience,
Bangla.
exactly. I wanted people from Canada to reach out to you. You know, I don't know if it's
That's
worked yet,
that
but we'll see.
we'll see. Yeah. All right. So Mark, let's. We were talking about what's happening in Canada as well as it's a black hole or a supernova. Well,
Yeah,
yeah,
absolutely. And then just to give everyone, my full name's kind of long like yours, Sabbir, Mark Sterling Panoyo Coolen, but
yeah.
we'll stick with Mark.
Yeah,
And
Mark is good.
I think
Yeah,
it's what you said at the beginning, it kind of, I think like 2012, 13, there was a really, I think before that there wasn't as much of um, an interest in startups, or there weren't as many. And
yeah,
now there's a lot more, and there's like specific programs affiliated with universities, more networking events related to startups, more investment. So it did, kind of grow after that time. Um, in terms of now, I don't know if it's grown any further. I don't have like the industry stats on that. But yeah, there was kind of like a big like interest in startups, and it really grew exponentially in the earlier part of I guess it's the last decade now, the previous decade.
yeah.
So yeah.
Okay. Mark, like as I was asking, how is it in Canada? For example, like when you were looking for a job and you started working for startups, different startups,
Mhm.
what you usually look at, like what do you?
Yeah. So when you're
Yeah, please.
so this is kind of like designed to be advice for people who are just kind of starting their careers, or maybe like in a more middle state of their career. Um, I did like my own like small business during the summers for university. I wouldn't really call that a startup. But I had some experience doing cold calling and so forth. And then one of the first startups I worked for here in Toronto was a startup called Joist, and I just found that job on Indeed. It was actually, I think, 2012 or 2013, and it was
Mhm.
when there weren't as many postings about startups, but there was a posting there, and I needed money.
Okay.
And this is another thing when you're approaching startups,
Yeah.
um, are you being valued at least close to the what the market rate is? Now, if
But
you're
like
earlier in your career, sorry, go ahead. Yeah.
yeah, no, my question was like when you are basically from the perspective of an entrepreneur, when you were starting a business, you don't actually have any money, and then you you want other people to work for you, and you don't have that
Mm.
much money to pay them. So how does it work there in Canada? Like I don't know, like in
Yeah.
Bangladesh, it's quite a bit different. I'll talk about that later. But what about Canada? What's happening there?
Yeah. So, in terms of running my own business, I ran a small contracting business, which again I wouldn't call as like a startup, and then I also had a sales business as well. Um, the best way to think about it in terms of if you're so this is not from the person applying for the job at a startup's perspective. This is person kind of founding a startup.
Hmm.
Why not try to make it a real business? Like, why not try to get actual customers, actual revenue, um, and start growing from there? Many like startups are basically dependent on getting investment money for cash flow,
Yes. Yes.
and that will work for a certain number of ones. Like
Hmm.
for example, I think like we talked about earlier, like Amazon wasn't profitable for a long time.
Yeah.
Same as Facebook, but their strategy was kind of being the dominant, almost like a monopolistic player in that market, and they needed that investment money to get to that market size, right? They needed that investment money to get to that size and also invest in the technology, and then the return to the investors and the return would come later, right? But those are not common cases, right? I mean,
Yeah.
we know
They're
about them
except
because they've grown
big.
so big,
Yeah.
but most of the time, it's a good idea for you to actually have like revenue coming in and customers. And the way to do that as a business owner is get paying customers. So get cold calling, reach out, network, build your customer base, and that's the best way to prove a certain product market fit, right?
Oh, yeah. Because those who wants to join a new startup, they need to look at few things. First of all, whether the company is well funded or got the initial funding from different investors.
Hmm.
If that is like that flow is going on, then it's a safe thing to bet on, and
Safer,
save for having the paycheck at the end of the month, probably
yeah,
for for the
yeah,
employees. On contrary, if the company is not actually getting that much of seed funding, because at the very beginning when you start your company, it's difficult to get investors because you need to prove that you have a viable product or something like that.
hmm,
So seed funding is the next part, but initially when a person who is joining a startup, and that particular company is not yet funded, what are the things a person should look at? Like, okay, so these are the things, check, these are all well. Now I can join this company because I'll get the paycheck and I can contribute to this company, and this
hmm.
company has a potential to grow. So what's the flow chart, how an employee should think when
Okay,
it's joining a company?
right. So you're applying for a job and you're looking at a certain startup, and in this scenario, the startup that you're looking at doesn't have funding,
Hmm.
right?
Yeah,
In your
yeah,
scenario that
doesn't.
you laid out. Okay, so then
Yeah.
how are they going to pay you? Okay,
Yeah,
so
first of all, how are they going to pay you? And from the employee side, what are the things they should look on when before joining that company?
yeah,
Like,
yeah, yeah.
yeah,
In one case, it's kind of the same thing. It's okay if they have sales, if they have
yeah,
paying customers.
yeah,
Okay, that shows that the startup might be viable, and it also gives a method of payment. Um, Sabbir, are you still there?
yeah. I'm there. Yeah,
Oh,
you
okay.
talk. Yeah,
It just
yeah.
we'll cut that out. You disappeared, so I'm just wondering if
No,
you're
I'm
hiding.
here. No. I'm still here.
Oh, okay, okay. Because I thought I
I'm
was
listening
talking to
to you.
myself again.
This platform is kind of cool. I like it. Like, I need to get the paid version because you can see the StreamYard logo on the right side. We can remove that and put our
You can put a picture
heads.
of your face. Yeah, your
Yeah,
two heads on the
yeah, two
same.
heads like this.
Yeah, it's like a
Okay.
Gemini
Anyways,
phone.
okay.
All right,
Let's.
so okay, the
Yeah,
the answer to the question is
yeah,
do they a big one is do they have customers, right? Because if they have
yeah,
some customers, even if
yeah.
it's only a few, it showed some sort of connection in the market, right?
Mhm. Yeah.
It means that the product is a product that certain people will pay for, right? But then it also means they have revenue coming in, so that means that the company will be able to pay you, right?
So,
Uh,
so our revenue model is very important. Like, people who are watching this podcast, that's a great point that we just chalked down right now. Because if you are joining a startup, you need to figure out like that company has a strong revenue model or not. Is it like salary based? Is it commission based? You need to know what's going on in terms of the revenue within the startup. If that is sort of what you
Right,
mean,
like
or
how are they, regardless of whether your role is salary based or commission based or is a mix of the two, either way, for both those, the way you're going to get paid, you there needs to be revenue to pay you. Now, in some cases, like we mentioned earlier, they just have funding, right? So they have
yeah,
funding.
yeah,
You can use certain resources, I think like Crunchbase. There's a few other resources to see to verify that a company has funding. So when you're at the let's talk about from a practical perspective. When you're at the interview, you can ask, who's invested in the startup, what organizations are, what level of funding are you at, and then another good follow-up question is, do you have paying customers, and who are they?
Okay, let me write it down in a Word file, and then I'll share it here. So I'll just try to put, I don't know, like try to put some points that you mentioned. Number one, if
Well, it's kind of the same point. It's either they have funding or they have customers. And and for funding, it could be like self-funding. The guy, the person could be, funding it themselves. But either way, there has to be some sort of way for you to get paid.
yeah.
So that's.
So first one, like first one you mentioned is more like whether the funding funding is there, right? Whether the funding is there, like funding is in flow. Number two is it's more about the revenue model.
Well, yeah. Do they have paying customers?
Okay, so
Right.
it's more like, do they have paying customers?
Yeah.
If not, what
If
should
not,
be?
again, it goes back to how much funding they have, because it could be a kind of a unique model where they're kind of starting with building out a marketplace. But again, that's pretty rare.
And
But either way, the main point is the money has to come from somewhere. Either has
yeah,
to come
absolutely.
from customers that are paying, like most
Yeah,
businesses,
yeah.
or it has to come from investors.
Because at this moment, like in Bangladesh or in India, this startup boom is happening, and people are coming with different ideas, and they're looking for funding. Some people are getting like fundings from venture capitalists or angel investors, and some people are not. But uh, like I have talked to many employees who worked for different startup companies, and they never got paid. They got stake, and those stake were not at all worth it, because the company actually didn't sustain for a long. So they are saying that it's a waste of time for them.
Right.
So
When you're
how do
getting,
you? Yeah.
yeah, what you're talking about is like, yeah, you get stock options or some share of the company or something like that. That should be like something that is kind of a nice to have, or an addition to you being able to pay yourself, to get, sorry, not you paying yourself, getting to your salary or to your commission, right? Because, for example, startups, sometimes they might not be able to pay the market wage for the position, so they'll add stock options, or just sometimes they want to attract top talent, so they'll pay the market wage or above the market wage and provide stock options, and the stock options will be based on performance. Those are decent scenarios. Those make sense to someone looking for a job at a startup, or any company, actually, for that matter. But what doesn't make sense, and what a lot of like more inexperienced people get trapped with, is that they get sold on the dream. Basically,
Yeah.
they're like, here, you're going to work for stock options, and then
Yeah.
those stock options are worth less than the paper they're written on, or
Yeah.
the digital copy they're written on, if the company doesn't get sold, if it's not a successful venture, right? So
Yeah.
then, like 1 year down the line, the company runs out of cash, and they're like, oh, I guess we didn't get sold. Sorry.
Yeah.
Thank you for helping us. So thank you for being part of this journey. So
Yeah, that's awful.
yeah,
Like, yeah, that's awful.
so then that's when you're talking about the beginning. People are like, oh, I wasted time. Well, I've been with startups where maybe they did not go 10x, right? They didn't get a huge return on the options. However, they paid me a good, in one of the cases, a commission. It was great. So okay, my options, I think they went from I think it's private information, but they went from a little bit to a little bit. It was not I don't have a yacht, but
Yeah.
because I had a good commission,
Hmm.
while I was there. I was making a living. I would be able to build my own, personal equity, and then I was also be able to build my resume as well. Versus if you just have options, if you're just working for free, I guess you're building your resume, but it's
Yeah,
a very expensive way to build your resume.
absolutely. You're just wasting your time. Like,
Yeah, exactly. It's the opportunity cost too. You could have been working for a non-startup.
yeah,
Maybe you could have been working at like McDonald's or something, and at least you would have something to show for it. No offense to McDonald's or anything. But
yeah,
you could be working at a more at a job, at just a regular job, and you would have money. But you follow the dream without asking for a little bit of skin in the game, and you just came. You were just provided the dream, and the dream is gone. So then you have, yeah, exactly. You have your resume, but that's about
yeah.
it.
It's a nightmare.
It's a little
So,
bit. It's a very sad dream. You get woken up.
but it's like when we hear the different motivational speech, the speech from the entrepreneurs from different part of the world, they
Yeah,
always say, like, chase your dream, and you fail, and then you learn, and then you fail again, and then
yeah,
you got up, and then you run, and then you become successful. Like, but like in reality, what I have seen, it doesn't happen in that way. Trust me. Like, I don't know, like from my perspective, I've seen how much I actually how much I struggled while securing a job in US, or like any part of the world. I can understand, like, that motivational speech doesn't match properly with the
yeah.
reality,
Well,
because
yeah. So, and that's nice for them. Like, especially if they're hiring, it's like, yeah, don't worry, we failed. You you didn't get
they don't
paid or
hire.
anything, or you got
They don't
paid very
hire.
below market
Yeah.
wage, but at least you learned a lesson. So, I mean, there's some truth to, yeah, you can learn from failure, fine,
Yeah.
but you can also learn from success.
Absolutely. Yeah. That's absolutely. You can
um,
also learn from success, not only
so
failure. Yeah.
yeah, and then why not? Let's say the startup idea is not, it's not viable, right? It ends up, it doesn't have a market fit, right?
Yeah.
It runs out of cash, or whatever happens. At least, even if the startup failed, again, if you had some sort of monetary compensation, whether it's commission or salary, at least you are left with something. So you can learn from the failure of that startup or that business model,
Hmm.
but you have something to fall back on, versus learning and then having nothing.
So
So
we are not actually talking about a lot of money. We're talking about a little bit of money that will keep you surviving
yes,
with the
like
with
you
the
might want
with the
to
world.
have enough money, like to, okay, it could be paying rent,
Yeah.
or it could be having food, or just building your savings,
Yeah.
um, so that you have a future in general, all right?
Absolutely.
Yeah, an independent, a somewhat independent future, right? Because okay, the startups, certainly they should be getting something from you, like in terms of your work ethic, or your skills as a salesperson, or your skills as a developer, whatever your skill set is. But you should also be getting something out of them, like some sort of something that's tangible, and that's not what's the fugazi, something that's real, not stardust.
Yeah.
You have a lot of
But
celestial analogies here, celestial
yeah,
metaphors.
yeah, yeah. No, from my perspective, working in a startup is always with heavy risk, high risk.
Yes,
It's like when
often,
you
yeah.
are working with a startup, you have to suck it up. Like, you are actually taking a huge risk, and but if the result comes like good, like if it's better, the future
Hmm.
is better, then it's fine. But most of the cases, it's the harsh truth that it doesn't work the way it looks with Facebook or with Amazon or
Right.
with Google.
Right.
But still, we don't want to disappoint people who are like working with different startup. But the thing is, definitely you have to sync yourself with the dream of the entrepreneur in a particular startup. That's necessary, but along with that, you need to, you know, you need to get compensated a little bit
Yeah, you need
to
to value
survive.
your time, and
Yeah.
absolutely. Like it's not a like with a startup or
Mhm.
any newer business, there's a chance that the higher chance, like you said, it's a higher risk that the business might fail, right? And you have to go into it with your eyes wide open there. But in accepting that risk, you should still be um, not working for free. I wouldn't recommend working for free.
Yeah, that's a great recommendation. Don't work for free if you're good
Yeah,
at something. Yeah.
try not to work for free. It's yeah, and
Yeah,
even
that's really important. Like that's really important. Like there are people that they don't, for example, like free they go for free internship. Free internship is fine, but when they go for the job and they say like, okay, the entrepreneurs or the company owners, they say you get the stock option and you don't get paid on anything, but when we will get funded in coming future, we'll be splitting the money according to the percentage and stuff like that. Those are fairy tales. It doesn't work. Like
yeah, exactly. They're just like if it is a viable business, or if it's a good, if it's a decent, if the company has a decent culture, generally they'll be willing to pay you something, right? Because if
yeah.
it the chances if it has funding, there's a higher
Mhm.
chance that it's a more viable business, right? So
Yeah.
they should be able to pay you. If they have customers, there's a higher chance that it's a more viable business, so they should be able to pay you.
Yeah.
So they're either not paying you because they might not have a viable business, or they just don't want to pay you, and they're taking advantage of you're new to the job market, and they're taking advantage of a certain naivete that you might have. And you're like you just think about the dream. So that's what I would recommend to anyone joining a
Yeah.
startup. Get some sort of compensation. Now I have worked jobs where it's commission only, but I started seeing the commission within a few weeks, right? And then it's
Then you get interested, like you got more interested
you
to
got more
work more.
interested and then the commission was higher than the market rate of because you're taking a risk, right? So commission is much higher risk. But on the other hand, so if it's higher risk, there should be a higher reward, right?
Yeah.
Versus getting
Absolutely.
paid zero,
Yeah.
you're taking a higher risk with a startup in the first place, generally, and then you're getting a lower reward. You're getting no reward. So it doesn't, how does that
like,
make sense? I don't know.
like like demotivation to the power of
Yeah.
infinity. Yeah, it's
Yeah.
like,
And you just, sorry, go ahead. Yeah.
yeah, no, please go
Well, yeah,
ahead.
exactly. You're earning, you're getting compensated with a dream.
Yeah,
Okay.
that's crazy. Like you are getting compensated with the dream,
Yeah.
and the dream turned out to be a nightmare.
Hmm.
And that's like negative compensation. Like
Yeah.
when you get out of the company, you're like, okay, I lost a lot. Like you don't just lose your time and money,
Yep.
you also lose your appetite to work for any other startup. Like when you feel like you are betrayed.
Right. You could
Yeah.
get cynical. Yeah, it could affect your attitude. And then there's also the opportunity cost. Like I said, you could have been working even a more repetitive job that's not that interesting, but at least you're getting um, some sort of compensation for that job that you're saving up, and you can put yourself into a better negotiation position for when you have another job, or you're building experience or something, right? So there's also the opportunity cost as well. But yeah, that's a good example about emotional toll that it could make you cynical, right? So just try not to
Absolutely.
get yourself into that situation in the first place. Yeah.
So, like, if let me give you one scenario. like when for example you join a company, you heard that the company is doing well, probably it's about to get funded, and it has some customers, and then you join, and after you join you figure out, okay, those were not right, those
Mm.
were not the right information that you got before, but the thing is pretty worse at this moment. What would you do? Just leave, or would you try to get along and
Well,
get
first you want to
engaged?
find out that your information is correct. So if there's information that's contradicting what they told you initially, just verify it.
How?
And well, you can find out, are there customers? Who are the customers? Maybe somebody told you they have no customers. Oh, you talk to the person in sales. Oh, we do. No, we have customers. Here they are. Okay, right. You see, maybe you just heard a rumor, right? So you can't
Hmm.
go off of rumors. But if it's verified, okay, they told you initially, oh, we have these customers, and you find out they're not customers. They're just some people who expressed interest in the past. The idea that they're getting funding, that's not at all the case. There's nothing's being finalized. They're just talking to people at networking events or something like that. Then
Yeah.
I would recommend, yeah, I would recommend leaving, because basically actions are always speaking louder than words. And then if a
True.
company is straight up, well, they're basically being deceptive. If the practices are deceptive towards the employees, how would they
Mhm.
be towards future customers? Like it would be that would be a problem, right? Either
Yeah,
way,
like you are not honest with your own people. How would you be honest with the people outside,
right.
external
And
stakeholders? Yeah.
exactly. And then the danger is that the longer you stay, the more time you put into it. And then human
Yeah.
nature, I think it's more of a term used in economics, the sunk cost
Yeah.
fallacy.
Yeah.
That, oh, I've
Absolutely.
spent a few months doing this, I'm going to see it through. It's like,
Hmm.
no, you've lost those 2 months. Let's not you lose a year, right?
Okay.
You just
You need to
say you made a mistake.
understand.
That's okay. People make mistakes, but you know
Yeah.
what? Look at it in terms of you only spent 2 weeks or 2 months versus
Mhm.
2 years of your time with a business model that's not viable, or a company that's not honest. And in this specific scenario, is the company basically lied to you.
Yeah.
So why would,
Uh,
and if they're paying you still, maybe
yeah.
you might want to look for somewhere elsewhere, because they basically deceived you.
So I was talking about yesterday when we were talking over WhatsApp. I was talking about a company in Bangladesh called eValley, and they were sort of a startup, and they were like Amazon, and they were selling different products, and their hot product was motorbike because of the
Mhm.
ride sharing thing happening. Ride sharing company like Uber and yeah, like Uber. And is there anything, any other ride sharing app you got in Canada other than Uber?
Uh, Lyft. There's Lyft.
Oh, there's Lyft. So yeah, in Bangladesh we got Uber, we got Pathao, and there was another one called Shohoj. Okay, so that's why motorbike became a hot product, and they were giving uh, products for free. For example, like buy one get one free. So their initial target was B2C, like okay, so as an individual customer you will buy a motorbike, and you if you
Mm.
buy one you get one for free. But you know that instantly other dealers, like big dealers, they got instantly interested into the deal, and they started ordering like 50, 60, 100, 200, 500 bikes,
Hmm.
and asking for 1,000 bikes. Like you order for 500 bikes because you have that much of capital or working capital in your hand, and then you ask for 1,000 bikes, and eValley cannot provide that
Mm.
because the model itself is faulty. It looks like
Right.
multi-level marketing. So but it was really hyped up, and traffic, website traffic was really high, and they were expecting Amazon will come and take over, but nothing happened, and they had to shut down the company, and they had to run away. some of them got caught, and some of them actually ran away. So
Mhm.
uh, from the employee perspective, it's really hard, because at the beginning they can see the success. They were like, wow, so many orders are coming, things are happening really good. We are the cash flow is going on because you are taking pre-orders and things like that. That's why from employee perspective, business is going good, and you are thinking that, okay, I have made the right choice to join this company. But suddenly you see, oh my god, this is a scam. What would you do? Like, you were like completely into it. You put all your skin for the business. You worked day and night, and now you just figured out that it's a scam. Then what would you do?
Yeah, I
What
mean,
should you
if you
do?
if you figure out it's a scam, I mean, you should get out of that company.
But you already,
And I
you
know you
lost
put a
like
lot of
1 year.
right, right. It's that year unfortunately is lost. Now, okay, so there's that moment where you find out it's a scam. Now, the moments leading up to that, or you let's call it a scam. Let's say there's a less extreme case where it just turns out it's not a good business model, and things just
Yeah,
start falling apart, and the end is clear, right? Okay,
yeah,
so up to now that is a problem or an issue with almost anything in the startup world. It is what we talked about is high risk, right? So there
yeah,
is the possibility or a probability even that the startup and the business model it will just won't work, right?
yeah,
So what you have to protect yourself as an employee is again going back to that point, is making sure that throughout that time where you were growing or you thought the business was viable or you thought it had a chance that you're getting some sort of compensation. And that way it's it might even be like easier to leave or to accept being let go as part of like layoffs that might occur when it runs out of cash if you can look back and say, okay, well, at least I have some money now set aside that I can pay for rent, or I can start to prepare for buying a house or apartment, whatever the case may be, versus if you got like no money or if your compensation was so under the market rate, then you will have all sorts of regrets, right? It's not only the regret
yeah,
of joining a business that turned out to be non-viable, it's also the regret is like you have nothing to show for it. Like
yeah.
other than the experience of learning from failure.
Yeah.
Oh,
Learning
great.
from
Well,
failure.
learning from failure doesn't necessarily feed you, you know?
Yeah,
You can't
yeah,
buy you can't buy a I don't know a bag of flour with your learning from failure. You can't buy your cereal with learning from
yeah,
failure.
yeah. Mark, you've been dead honest about this thing, and I also agree with you, because we always try to motivate people that you learn from the failure and stuff like that. But yeah, you can learn from the success as well. Uh,
Yeah,
but the
and you can learn from failure too, but you should have at least something to show for it,
yeah,
right?
so
You should have had some you should have had some compensation as you were learning, right?
it's not in employee's hand. It's completely on employer's hand.
Hmm.
So you just need to make sure that before you take the poison, uh, you
Well,
know
you don't
you,
know. It's a bottle with a question mark, and maybe it will
yeah,
turn out to be poison later. But before you
yeah,
take the potion, let's
yeah.
say
So
mystery potion.
so if you are a high risk taker, and if you think like, yeah, because but if you like to take a lot of challenges, and you love to hustle, and you love to do a lot of innovative things, excitement in your life, then definitely go for this startup, because it's so many things you can do, so many things you can learn. It's like a machine that you are making from the scratch. Whereas if you are a less I would say, if you are risk averse, um, at the beginning of your career, it's better to go for a stable company, being a part of the machine, and learn that particular part, rather
Yeah,
try to
everyone has.
handle
Yeah,
the entire machine, right?
yeah, everyone has different risk profiles. But if you do have a higher risk profile where you are willing to go with a startup, you're right. There's a lot of positives in terms that you can even rise to positions that would take maybe years or decades to reach in a larger company.
Yeah.
Um, I think one of the first startups I was at, I was running payroll for part of the
Mhm.
time, so learning how
Yeah.
that worked because they just didn't have the staff for HR at the time, right? So you learn a lot of different things. But again, that's great. Like that is a positive thing about startups, but you should be compensated to some degree. And again, I'm saying, I'm not saying you're going to get necessarily the market rate for that position. It might be a little bit lower market rate, but with some, some stock options. The main message is just don't go
Mhm.
for something that's not offering you anything but the dream, right? It should be the dream plus some
Yeah.
reality should be the compensation.
Yeah. Like Martin Luther King.
Well, I mean, yeah, you had realistic goals as well as having the vision, right? You can't just sign up for just the vision. There has to be realistic goals attached to it, and then in the startup context, as an employee, you should be getting some compensation. Now, as even a higher risk profile is someone who's going to start their own startup,
Hmm.
right? And now
Yeah.
in that case, if you're the business owner, maybe you're not getting compensated right away,
No.
right? But you're the flip side to that is if it is successful,
Hmm.
your compensation is going to be much higher, right? But for most of
Absolutely.
this little conversation, we're mostly talking about from the employee perspective,
Yeah.
right? And
So
it's been mostly focused on just how to protect yourself as someone who wants to work for a startup. Uh,
startup. Yeah.
Building the startup yourself, yeah, it's possible that yeah you won't be compensated immediately. You're taking a very, even higher risk, but you have far more control over the direction of a business to really to hit those goals versus an employee who does not have the final say on the direction of the business.
Yeah. That's a
So
great
to get
point,
paid
Mark.
nothing is
Yeah.
kind of crazy.
Because employees doesn't have the decision making authority as the owner himself or herself.
Right.
So for owner's perspective, definitely those who are starting a startup, they they have they are the risk takers. But employees working for the startup, uh, they are a bit risk averse than the owners, but still they are taking a huge risk on their future, or they don't have any option. They are not getting any decent job anywhere. That's why they got an option to work in a startup, and they just join to get
Right.
the get the initial experience, because they are like in their 20s, and they can do mistake, and they can learn from the mistake, and they have the
Certainly.
flexibility. Because
Yeah.
yeah, and the financials are like at that moment they have like money. They can get money from their parents, and they can survive that particular moment. But
Some people can get money from them, not everyone, right?
yeah, sure,
And
sure.
then the other thing is even in your 20s, um, I I kind of recommend against the idea of again doing things for free. So let's say you have a bunch of free internships available
Hmm.
in a month. They're all your job offers are free internships. Maybe you might want to consider just taking a more menial job to help pay the bills, or a more basic job, just a general, I don't know, whatever it might be, and keep doing interviews, keep applying for jobs that are more fit for your degree or what you want to do for a career, and then get some sort of job within your career area where you're getting again some sort of compensation. Because just because within a month or a few weeks you get all your options are free internships doesn't mean that's always good. Like it's kind of it's almost similar to sales. It's like a numbers game. There might be a better fitting job for you out there. Um, yeah, I don't know. I have certain feelings against taking free internships. I wouldn't personally.
Okay.
Um, I mean,
Yeah.
yeah, I've done some volunteer work
Volunteer
from
work
time
is
to time.
fine.
That's totally different than
Yeah.
working for someone who's making a profit for free. Like,
Yeah.
and they're like, oh, well, you're getting experience, but you could also, again, it goes back to that principle of opportunity cost. Well, I could also be getting experience and or money somewhere else.
True.
So your experience is not looking so great compared to money plus maybe less experience, or more experience and a little bit of money. Either way, your free experience is not looking as like such a great deal.
Yeah,
Yeah.
absolutely. I have this experience. It's a bit different. It's not a startup, but I'll not mention the name. But uh, there's this group. They usually do voluntary things, and they asked me to take some trainings, and I have taken online trainings of different group of people, like three or four, and then. I was not charging anything. I was doing it for free. I was just
Mhm.
okay. I love to train people sometimes, like on on different soft skills. So I did that, and eventually I have seen they have started charging money from the participants, and they are asking me to provide the training for free. And that's the moment I said, like, no, I don't think I don't think that's a
Yeah.
good idea. Yeah, I am. Yeah, I have done one, and then I was very uncomfortable to talk about this with them as well, because isn't it a common sense that if you are charging money from the participants, you should pay the facilitator? Uh,
Exactly.
yeah,
That's as if, let's say we did a few of these conversations and you say, Marcus is a free conversation. We're gonna work together. We're
yeah,
not gonna make money off this. And then all of a sudden, like you open up an account, and let's say we're the co-hosts of this. You open an
yeah.
account, you start charging your customers. You're like, oh, Mark, come here for free. It's good to help the organization out, and help the organization is helping you out.
Yeah,
So
yeah,
that's the same kind of
yeah.
concept. It's a charity until it's not a charity. It's a non-profit until it's until it's a profit for some
Yeah,
people. Yeah.
you just made it clear that don't f with me, Sabir. Whatever you do.
Yeah. No, I know you wouldn't do that, but I was just using that as a funny. I thought it'd be a funny example.
Yeah, yeah.
Yeah.
No, no, yeah, it's actually right. So in case of startups, it happens as well. Like they think sometimes they have customers, and they're
Yeah.
getting the money, getting the revenue, and that they're not paying the salary, or they're not sharing the salary. From
Yeah,
my
and in the case
perspective,
of
yeah,
startups, it's even
please.
worse. Or I don't know if it's worse or better. Actually, it's just a different scenario. They're
Mhm.
already they're not pretending that they're nonprofits. It's for profit, and then they're
Yeah,
not paying their
yeah,
employees, but
true.
they're making money. So I don't know if that's worse. They're both bad. But either way, as an employee or someone it's all about just it should be a fair arrangement, basically. Yeah.
Yeah, like from employ like definitely all the startup companies or the entrepreneurs will hate us, that we are they might think that we're discouraging the people who will work for them, who will be the part of their dream chasing
Project.
project. But end of the day, we are not against that, basically, like
Yeah, no, exactly. I mean, I don't
yeah.
think most sensible company owners or startup owners, I don't think they'll have any problem with what we're saying, or they won't have a serious problem. It's the type of owner who might want to try to get something like for nothing, right? Or just basically that they might have an issue with what we're saying, but there are a lot of great startups they have a great company culture because they pay their employees properly. And again, in certain situations, it's not going to be the same as market rate, right? That's understandable, but they're building a business and they're treating their employees properly. So the employees are going to work. But usually, it's human nature that you'll work better if you're being treated well. They might bring in more revenue. They might serve their customers better, whatever their role is, which generates more customers if the business model is viable. And then it's a virtuous circle, right?
Yeah.
So those the people which are probably, I mean, I wouldn't know the exact figures, but if you're the number of companies that are doing it correctly, they're not going to hate us. Yeah, if you're trying to, yeah, I think we got the point across. Yeah,
Yeah.
they might not like
if you're trying to be
one.
If you're trying to be like Jonathan, then that's that's not the right thing.
Yeah, and that's just a generic name there, but
generic name.
A generic name. But if you're trying to,
that was a nightmare for me. Anyways, I got back. Okay, we are talking about some random guy. Don't get into the details, but I would say like that very moment I was so depressed back in 2012 or 2011. I was like so depressed. I don't know.
Though in a way, we were lucky that was just part of a school project. And just to give the audience some context, Sabbir is just referring to like a school project. Part of it was, this is not to do with the school. We're supposed to kind of work with a startup or a company, and for the duration of the project, and then the company we selected was not, let's say, not above board, or the business model was dysfunctional. Everything was dysfunctional, and even though we only worked there for, I don't know, it must have only been a few months or something like that. It was just dispiriting.
2.5 months, 3 months.
Yeah, 3 months. It was not a great experience. So you can only imagine someone it's not a school project. This is they need a job, and they need, let's say it's something that they depend on, right, for their livelihood, or depend to survive. And it's like that could be really damaging. So you want to try to avoid that, and it's pretty straightforward. Again, those questions we talked about at the beginning, or the research you can do at the beginning, find out, is the startup funded? If yes, or if not, find out if they have customers, where are they getting their cash flow from? And once you join the startup, you should be able to just find out if what they said initially and what you researched initially matches reality. And if something feels wrong, and you do the research and you talk to people within the startup, or maybe talk to customers, or whatever, you do your research as you're working. If it finds out that, okay, or even, for example, your paycheck doesn't come in, and there's all sorts of bogus excuses of why it didn't come in, and it's not just some technical error that took a day or two, it just doesn't come in for weeks, then you should definitely consider just, okay, you made a mistake, no problem, everyone makes a mistake, just walk away. Like in what was that movie? Sure. Mad Max.
Mad Max.
Just walk away.
Just walk away.
Exactly. And your career will be spared. So
yeah,
that's good advice.
That's a very good advice. Like there is nothing wrong working in a startup, but if you really want to work for a startup, definitely do your research. And do your research in a way like whether what they are saying from the employer perspective, whether it matches your research or not. If it does not, don't go there, because end of the day, you need to put some food on your plate, and if you just go for the dreams, that will not bring any food.
Yeah, that's
So
great. That's a good way to end it. And I think next podcast we can talk more about the benefits of working
yeah,
for a startup, especially for a startup that is it might not even be a successful business model in the end, but it's the startup pays you a respectable wage and which you can learn from that experience. So yeah, this has been fun. Thanks for having me on, Sabbir, and we look forward to the next
yeah,
one.
that's great. And we will do a few more podcasts together. And for the audience, definitely it was a pleasure having Mark with me. And it's not my podcast, it's basically our podcast. And we are going to, give some name of this podcast, and not yet fixed. So could you please recommend something? If you can recommend something,
Yeah,
put it into
in
the
the
comment
comments
section.
below. Yeah.
Yeah, put in the comments below. Yeah, I said like Sabbir on your mark, and Mark said like Mark just laughed. You didn't like it.
It's not a,
You
it's
didn't
not a
like
bad idea. We could say M&M, but I think that's like copyrighted.
it. Eminem.
M&M, I think it's copyrighted by the candy company and the rapper. I'm
Yeah,
not sure which one we'd get
yeah,
into trouble with. We'd probably get in trouble with both. So that one, I don't think that can be the name.
yeah. S&M could be there
Oh,
somewhere as
I don't
well.
know.
That sounds. Not.
Cut that one
I don't
out.
want to. I don't want to use that word, but yeah, that doesn't sound so great. Okay,
Yeah.
let's see. We will fix something.
We'll see, exactly.
We'll fix something. Definitely. It was nice having you. Anyways, okay, goodbye.
Bye.
Okay, I will end the podcast now. Thank you.